You just watched someone trip and fall in public. And before you could stop it, before you could even decide how you felt, something flickered across your face. A small, involuntary smile. A quiet internal satisfaction that was gone almost before you noticed it. And then came the guilt. But here is what nobody tells you. That flicker was not a character flaw. It was not a sign that something is broken inside you. It was one of the oldest, most precisely engineered responses in the human brain. A mechanism so ancient that it predates language, civilization, and everything you think of as your personality. The enjoyment of others' misfortune has a name. In German it is called Schadenfreude, a compound of Schaden, meaning damage, and Freude, meaning joy. Damage joy. The feeling has existed long enough in human experience that an entire language built a single word for it. But the real story is not about a word. It is about what is happening inside your skull when you feel it. Why natural selection kept that response alive for hundreds of thousands of years, and why the modern world has turned a once adaptive emotion into something far stranger and more complicated than your ancestors ever had to deal with. Start with what the science actually shows. Psychologist Richard Smith at the University of Kentucky has spent years studying Schadenfreude and has found that it is not a rare or deviant emotion. It is near universal. In study after study, across cultures and demographics, when participants witnessed someone they perceived as deserving of misfortune experiencing exactly that, the brain's reward circuitry activated. Not the empathy circuitry. The reward circuitry. The same network that lights up when you eat something delicious or receive unexpected good news. Your brain is treating someone else's downfall as a reward. And the key word in that finding is deserving. Smith's research shows that Schadenfreude is not random cruelty. It is almost always tied to a perception of justice. The person who suffers is usually someone who was seen as arrogant, as having cheated, as having too much, or as having wronged someone. The brain is not simply enjoying pain, it is registering the correction of an imbalance. This is the first thing that makes the emotion so counterintuitive. Schadenfreude is, at its core, a justice response. Now think about where that sense of justice comes from, and how old it actually is. For most of human evolutionary history, your ancestors did not live in cities or nations. They lived in small groups of roughly 20 to 150 individuals. In groups that size, social hierarchy was everything. Who had status, who had resources, who was trusted, and who was not. These questions were not abstract. They were questions of survival. If one member of the group accumulated too much, took more than their share, cheated on cooperative tasks, or raised their status through deception, the entire group paid a cost. Anthropologist Christopher Boehm at the University of Southern California has argued that human societies developed what he calls reverse dominance hierarchies, social structures in which the group collectively acts to suppress any individual who tries to dominate unfairly. Gossip, ridicule, shaming, and exclusion were the tools. And the emotional signal that made those tools feel good to use? The pleasure of seeing an overreacher fall. Schadenfreude was not a side effect of social life. It was a feature. A mechanism that made enforcing group equality feel rewarding, and therefore made it more likely to happen. The person who cheated on the hunt and got caught. The leader who hoarded resources and then stumbled. The rival who boasted and then failed. In each case, your ancestors' brains registered the correction as a reward, the same way they would register finding food. Because in a very real sense, the correction was a resource. It restored the fairness that kept the group functioning. It reduced the advantage of the cheater. It leveled a playing field that, if left unleveled, would eventually cost everyone. You did not evolve to enjoy suffering. You evolved to enjoy justice. And suffering is sometimes what justice looks like. But this raises a more uncomfortable question. Because the modern world does not only give you Schadenfreude in cases of clear moral transgression, it floods you with it, constantly, deliberately, at industrial scale. Neuroscientist Tania Singer at the Max Planck Institute has conducted research showing that Schadenfreude and empathy operate through overlapping but dissociable neural circuits. When you empathize with someone's pain, a set of circuits associated with shared emotion activates. When you experience Schadenfreude at someone's pain, a different set activates, one more closely associated with reward and relief. And critically, the two can run simultaneously. You can feel both at once, which is part of why Schadenfreude produces guilt, and why guilt does not stop it. The brain can empathize and enjoy the misfortune at the same time. It is not a contradiction. It is the system working exactly as designed, registering both the human cost and the social reward of a correction. Now hold that understanding and look at what the modern entertainment industry has built on top of it. Reality television, true crime, competitive cooking shows where someone's souffle collapses, viral fail compilations, celebrity scandals, the comment section of almost any platform. All of these are, at their core, delivery systems for Schadenfreude. They take the ancient, justice-oriented pleasure circuit and feed it content at a volume and frequency that no ancestral environment ever produced. And here's where the system starts to break. In the small group, Schadenfreude was calibrated by personal knowledge. You knew the person who fell. You knew whether they had actually cheated, actually been arrogant, actually violated the group's trust. The social context was real and verifiable. The justice response was accurate. But when you watch a reality television contestant get eliminated or read about a celebrity's public humiliation, you are running a justice response on a stranger, someone you have never met, someone whose actual moral situation you cannot evaluate. You are experiencing the emotional reward of a correction without any of the information that would make that correction meaningful. Psychologist Wilco van Dijk at Leiden University has studied how envy interacts with Schadenfreude and found that the emotion is significantly amplified when the person suffering is someone you had previously envied. The higher the pedestal you put someone on, the greater the reward when they fall off it. This is why celebrity downfalls produce such intense and widespread Schadenfreude. Not because the person has necessarily done anything wrong, but because the culture had elevated them to a height that triggered envy. And the fall satisfies the envy response, regardless of whether any actual injustice has been corrected. The ancient calibration is gone. The reward remains. And so you end up with a brain that registers the collapse of a stranger's souffle as a justice event and gives you the same neural reward as correcting a genuine social violation, without any of the real-world meaning that reward was evolved to reinforce. This is what makes the modern relationship with Schadenfreude so strange. The emotion itself is not malicious. It is not even irrational by the standards of the environment it was designed for, but stripped of its social context, stripped of the genuine moral information that once grounded it, it becomes a free-floating reward that content creators and platforms have learned to trigger on demand. Every time you watch someone fail publicly, your brain runs the correction algorithm. Every time you feel that flicker of satisfaction, you are experiencing a response that evolved to hold small groups together, to enforce fairness, to make justice feel rewarding enough to pursue at personal cost. The system still works. The environment just changed. And so the next time that flicker crosses your face, the next time someone falls and you catch that involuntary smile before you can stop it, you will know exactly what happened. Not cruelty, not coldness, not a character flaw, a 200,000-year-old justice mechanism, still running, still calibrating, still looking for the overreacher who needs to be brought back down. It just found someone tripping on a sidewalk instead.